Don't you sometimes wish there was a quick fix solution to solving self-confidence issues? Don't you wish I could just hand you a magic formula or secret pill that would instantly eradicate all your self-confidence issues? Imagine the accelerated career path you could have had. Imagine those awkward moments in your life that you could have avoided. Or imagine that special relationship that you could have had if you could only master the self-confidence. Now maybe in the future, there'll be some sort of Neuralink technology that would instantly eradicate your self-confidence issues. Now, I don't know about you, but I definitely don't want somebody tinkering around with my neurons. Now for some of us, this journey may be a long and arduous journey, and for others, it may be an accelerated path. Now I very much feel like the tortoise on this journey to finding my self-confidence. It doesn't have to be that way. And I'm going to share with you the 3 key areas that I've learned that often limit our ability to step into self-confidence. I invite you to join me on this journey to navigating mind, body, and soul wellness. And I invite you to subscribe to this channel and to share this type of content with anyone that you think it can help. In this video, we're focusing more on the mind element, and we're looking at how we can step into our full, true, authentic selves. So without wasting any more time, let's delve right into it. Now I want to wind back the clock and take you back in time to when I was still a little child. And I was going to school at this time, and one of our projects was to deliver a speech in front of the class. And I had prepared a very serious speech. It was a speech about South Africa. Because I was back in South Africa at this time, and this speech was about the apartheid struggle. It was a very somber, serious speech. And I prepared for the speech, and at that stage, I didn't have the full self-confidence, so I still recited my speeches from a piece of paper. And on the day of having to deliver the speech, I felt confident. I got up, I walked to the front of the class, ready to deliver my speech. I stood there, I started reciting my speech. And not even partway through it, there was a few individuals that just burst out laughing. And I wondered, why are these kids laughing? I looked down, I had my pants on. Why were they laughing? At that moment, I felt really nervous. Like, what's wrong? Why are they laughing? Are they laughing at me? And I could feel my body start to tremor. I felt nervous. The laughter grew so loud that I couldn't continue my speech. I just stood there. Eventually, the teacher got up and said, "Hey, what are you kids laughing at?" One of the kids said, "He sounds like a girl." Another one mentioned, "Yeah, he's got a squeaky voice. It sounds awkward." And at that moment, I felt deeply nervous. Almost that tears could run down my eyes. I wasn't a popular kid. In fact, far from that. My social life, probably non-existent. That went really deep. I felt so nervous, I almost wanted to cry in the middle of that speech. I continued just mumbling a few lines out of my speech, skipping parts just to get to the end so I could get back to my chair and not have to worry about going through the rest of the speech. But that event, it left a really deep core message, belief within me, and that was, my voice doesn't matter. My voice has no meaning, doesn't need to be shared with the world. It has no value. And that belief was reinforced by multiple different events during my childhood. And because I'd become so sensitive to this, I'd become very susceptible to the opinions of others. And my childhood, I was often bullied and not the best of childhoods. And because of this, my mind hyper-focused on aspects that would reinforce this belief. And so, within myself, I had this core belief that my voice doesn't matter. And so, the first lesson that I learned on this journey to finding self-confidence is that you've got to go back. You've got to delve deep within your beliefs to identify what are those core beliefs that you have about your voice. Sometimes it could have happened way down in your past, way back in your past, but because it happened, it programmed itself within your subconscious mind. So even though now your life circumstances may be different, those very same beliefs that are embedded within your subconscious mind are playing out. I remember just recently I was asked to deliver a presentation at work, and I could feel that sense of nervousness bubbling up within me. And I wondered, where is this coming from? I thought I resolved a lot of these issues. But if we don't address those beliefs, if we don't become aware of it, it's really hard to get to the root cause of the problem. But this is a fundamental aspect to work on. Make sure you try and go down into the rabbit hole of your beliefs to identify those and resolve those beliefs. Let's get into the next critical aspect that limits your self-confidence. Okay, so now in this part, I'm going to take you back to a more recent past. I was in my university days, and I was asked to deliver a presentation as part of one of our core modules that we needed to work through. And at this stage, a totally different social dynamic. My social life wasn't as bad as what it was during my schooling days. And I was asked to deliver a presentation. And I'd prepared really hard. I'd worked so hard on this presentation. I prepared in front of the mirror, and I was confident to be able to deliver this presentation. I'd practiced many attempts at this presentation. And on the day when we got to the presentation, it was my turn. I got up, went up to the podium to deliver this presentation. And as soon as I got to the podium, I tried to get my slides to project on the monitor. Finally, I got the slides there. But I fumbled my slides, and somehow I couldn't navigate back to my starting slides. I started to feel really nervous. Something has gone wrong. Eventually, I looked around and I was starting to perspire like crazy. The heat in my body just felt so intense, and all of a sudden I couldn't think. Everything went blank. I just stood there in that nervousness. Finally, the lecturer said, "Why don't you start again?" But the nerves never subsided. That blank state of mind was still there. I just mumbled a few words, whatever I could read off the slides, and went, embarrassed, back to my seat, knowing that I had failed at an attempt to deliver a really well-prepared, well-rehearsed, well-practiced presentation. Now you might be wondering, why did this happen? Well, the lesson in this example was that I was so attached to perfectionism. I was so attached to wanting that presentation to be perfect, wanting it to go exactly as I planned it. And because it didn't, and I was unable to remember those first few lines and have the thing go exactly as how I wanted it, I'd failed. I was unable to deliver on my presentation. I was too attached. So what is perfectionism? Perfectionism is basically a way of hiding those insecurities, hiding those beliefs that we have about ourselves, because we're trying to have others see us as being confident, as being really great at what we do. We're scared that they'll judge us. They'll judge us harshly if we fail to deliver. Now, perfectionism is a major limiting factor to finding your self-confidence, and one that we need to become mindful of if we are to transcend the limitations to our self-confidence. Now, let's move on to the final key factor that limits our self-confidence. Okay, so that brings us to the third and final key critical element that limits ourselves from expressing our authentic self. So I'm going to spell it right out. The third one is basically not allowing yourself to be your authentic self, often creating these false personas to try and shield you from the outside world so that you can just fit in. And oftentimes this matrix society that we live within forces us into these types of situations. Now I often, with the very almost non-existent social life, often look to these popular kids and popular people in life and started to take on these traits and behaviors just so that I could get by. Not willing to step into who I am as an authentic person, someone that resonates with their own values rather than looking at others. And this does a lot of harm because it often distances ourselves from being able to step into who we really are as an individual. Now, the main issue with creating these false personas is that they are often derived from these poor beliefs that we have about ourselves, and they end up reinforcing those beliefs. So as I mentioned in the first aspect, this goes on to reinforce those negative beliefs, like my voice doesn't matter. And essentially, because it's coming from a place of deep insecurity, it takes us so far away from our self-confidence. So this is something that's really important to remember. Next time you find yourself in those awkward situations, ask yourself, am I really being authentic to myself, or am I taking on a false persona just so that I can get by, or just so that I can fit in? Because it's these behavioral traits that often end up doing more harm. I know from myself personally, these often end up doing more harm to the relationships you have in your life, because energetically people can pick it up when you're not being your authentic self. So there you go, the 3 critical areas to finding your self-confidence. Now for some of us, this is going to be like a long and arduous trek up a mountain, and for others it's going to be like taking a cable cart up the mountain. Whatever your path is, I hope these can help you on your journey. So thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next video.